That's Marlis. Hello, Marlis. Say hi to the camera. Welcome to my study. Can I hear me?
Yep.
Here's one of my guitars, my first guitar I've ever owned. It's tuned to an open G. Hear that? That's an open G. For slide. Slide. 3D. Ooh. 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 Okay. Good. Spent a lot of time here, and I won this grant from the American Philosophical Society this year to hang around and do nothing, and that's what I'm doing. So follow me. Come on, follow me. Show you the rest of the house. This here, fire alarm. This goes off most of. We just spent $300 to get a ceiling fan put in to avoid that. Let me show you the ceiling fan. Come on, come on. Through here, come on. You can see right there. I'll turn it on. Here's the switch. Gotta shut the switch. Got the fan? Okay. Okay, I think got enough of the fan there. Come on, come on. Hear that? It's not hiss. It's the ceiling fan. Welcome back, everyone. We were looking at the Hello Kitty toaster and the switch to the ceiling fan, which we already went over. And you'll notice here that the extension cord, which we need for the camera, is hooked into our new grounded plug. All the other plugs around here, well, where's one? Well, take my word for it, they're not grounded. And you know, we don't really mind. We just have those little gray bastards. Anyway, that was what's known as a digression. Now here is a Hello Kitty toaster. Elizabeth's birthday present from yours truly, the host of your show today. And we'll show you how it toasts bread into a wonderful little Hello Kitty pattern. Elizabeth is actually not 12, but much older than that. Okay, see, notice, no switcheroo here. It's a blank piece of bread, both sides. See? Upside down, all angles. Now watch, you saw we put it in, right? You get that? Okay, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm fooling anyone here. And you'll see, and you think it's going to work? How many out there think it's going to work? Huh? Raise your hands. Okay. Yeah. Here it goes. If I were a plant and I were thirsty, I'd be in heaven right now if I were down there. And all I wanted was a little water. Here we go. Now here, we have a huge papaya. This is what's known as a Chernobyl papaya. It's grown in the Chernobyl area, and they become really big and really tasty.
Yeah, you made that up. Mm-hmm.
No, see, it says right there, Chernobyl.
Mm-hmm.
What else should we show you? This is like a professional shelf pizza wooden thing. Pizza wooden thing, that's what they call it, or a PWT for short. Now, we're right here in 1314 21st Avenue, Northport, the home of Elizabeth Alter, president and founder of Alter Building Design, ABD. Incorporated. And here she is now in a great mood. Can we get a shot of this? Shoes are off. Shoes are off. You know why? It's Sunday. Okay. Day of rest, as far as I remember. Okay. Now, first question for Elizabeth Alter. Elizabeth Alter, can you tell us your middle name quickly?
Struble.
Struble. You heard it right here. That's her middle name.
That's not your middle name.
It's her middle name now. It's her married middle name. You know why? Because she's married to me. All right.
Oh, the toast is up.
What?
Toast just popped up.
Toast popped up. Well, we've already got that on tape, so it's all right. No emergency here. We're calm here on Sunday at Alter Building Design. Now, what was the first building you designed for Alter Building Design?
Well,
Look at the camera, please.
You look like that thing's growing out of your nose.
There's something growing out of my nose?
It's
What do you call that growing out of your nose? What do you call that?
it's the potty part,
The what?
the microphone.
Oh, the microphone. The potty part, right.
Is there something growing out of my nose?
What was the first building you designed?
Well, I've designed many buildings for an architect I used to work for, but my first official building would be the Harrison Art Gallery.
The Harrison Art Gallery. We were there earlier today, and I'll tell you, that was some spectacular architecture. What is your favorite floor of the Harrison Art Gallery? Would that be the first floor by any chance?
I would say the first floor is my personal favorite because I like the leather wall. Although
Sorry, go ahead.
Tanya may have different opinions.
But you're the expert, we're interviewing you now, so the first floor. Okay, now what now is your favorite material in the Harrison Art Gallery?
That would be the leather on the leather wall.
The leather on the leather wall.
Would you like to take a seat there, Tor? And I think that I can't get you both in the
Okay,
frame.
both?
Yeah.
Okay. Notice the cat hair on the seat? Got a good shot of that? I don't think I need the microphone anymore. You can probably hear me with that. All right. Okay. Now, we're sitting here in the home, the residence of Elizabeth Alter, architect AIA, registered architect, president and founder of Alter Building Design
Incorporated.
Incorporated. Now, you notice behind us is a perfect model of an Airstream trailer. Does that mean we're white trash? Not necessarily. Could you explain the existence of this?
Because similarly to my Hello Kitty obsession, I have a Airstream trailer obsession, which actually predates the Hello Kitty obsession.
Predates the Hello Kitty.
But I think the two relate to each other. I think that the Airstream trailer is everything it needs to be and nothing more. And I think Hello Kitty, similarly, is a perfect piece of art because it is everything it needs to be and nothing more.
In that case,
We can only see half of Elizabeth's face, the
And
trailer.
that's okay, because the Airstream trailer is actually better looking than yours truly.
Not in this co-anchor's opinion. Can you get a shot now?
Notice the Hello Kitty watch that I'm sporting today. Bought at the Hello Kitty mothership in Times Square in New York City.
Now, what do you call this haircut? What do you call this haircut?
I don't know. Short.
Architect Alter?
Short.
You heard it there first. She calls it short. The description, like the Airstream trailer and the Hello Kitty watch, is austere, no more and no less than one of
The mind
A little jocularity here.
the mind that is no more and no
No
less
less
than it needs to be.
Okay.
Where'd that come from? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how much in general do I get on your nerves?
Let me try to.
Now,
He's gonna answer it with an interpretive dance. What does that mean? Is that a 6? Is that 5? Is that 3? Does that mean 1?
It's ineffable.
It's ineffable?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Cannot be put into words.
It can't be put into words. That means the answer is not 0.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it could be 0. I never get on his nerves. Maybe we should just have ice cream for him.
I'm happy to cook.
I just want ice cream. Tanya will make the choice. Do you want Mexican?
no.
You don't like Mexican?
I love Mexican, but I don't want Mexican in Alabama.
Cypress-in, fresh fish, steak, seafood, sandbar, and grill. Sunday through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Diplomas, I did not get an answer to. Let me try that again. Do you want to go online?
anything. I'm happy to cook. I'm happy to go anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Bananas, one I think De Palmas is www.depalmascafe.com. I'm gonna get online. Day in the life. Just another Sunday in the wine country. About our history. This is sort of lame because it doesn't give their hours. Food. Antipasti, insalata, calzone, pizza. Main.
One.
No. I'm not saying anything. Does that mean there's something wrong with my computer? Look! Or is there something bizarre about this site? Tanya, you have to answer me.
It's probably the server.
I want animations. That's just
So, problem for this evening is thinking about our evening meal. We have two options. Option number one, stay here and have them cook. I'm fine with that. Seems to be some disagreement among the troops, but I'm fine with it. I can go on record saying that. Option number two, we can go to one of the many fine establishments, restaurant establishments in Tuscaloosa, and have them provide for us. Have you decided?
I am not making the decision.
Tanya?
Todd, and you said, when do you want to go?
Amazing. Couldn't be a coincidence.
When do you want to go? Let's say we're in Wendy.
What?
Let's say we're in Wendy.
Wendy.
And then say, when do you want to go?
Well,
And they'll
that-
say, yes.
that
We'll
will-
say, no, when do you want to go? And they'll say, yes. Because they'll think we're asking, do you...
Not anymore.
We'll say, they think we'll say,
That will get old quick.
they'll think we're saying, Wendy, do you want to go? And say, when do you want to go? And then they'll say, who's when?
Start. This is a recreation of a little spat, a little bit that I just had. I said, she claimed that I did not answer a question about how much she annoys me, and I said I did answer it just with an interpretive dance. And she answered in kind. She said,
"This is my interpretive
Yeah,
dance,
very
my
clever.
interpretive finger dance."
and then I said, I'm now prepared to verbalize my answer. And my answer is this: on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does she annoy me?
In general, not now. In general.
Oh, in general.
Yes. Not
Oh,
now.
I thought you meant like at the worst moments.
No, I know
I was going
capable
to say at the worst moments, I give her a very warm 13. And
mean,
in general,
in
not at all.
Yeah.
-5.
-5. See? All's
Wait,
well.
wait,
Mommy
give me a-
and Daddy love each other. Future junior person.
That's right.
Our future child. Mommy and Daddy love each other. And we love you too. Even though we haven't met you yet. Okay? And we hope you're prettier than your mother. And that's our cat. He's still here. His name is Freddy. Marlis is hiding. She's psychotic. But it's not genetic. Don't worry. rotated on the couch. Her head is now on the other end, signifying the day is done. Can you see us?
How about that?
Field trips. What are you doing? Marvelous.
Elizabeth cut it out.
She scares me. She has a habit of sitting right next to the water bottle, so my one method of getting her off a table, she gets in the way of it. I can't get to the bottle. Look, it's Elizabeth cleaning up her office.
That'll be repeated.
That's bad.
Some of it's just, working it out.
All right.
Hello, I was just wondering.
It flashed, right? Did I get? That didn't flash. What can I say?
Yeah.
I'll put you out of it.
You don't have to. No. I mean, if you want to, say it's. That's what I hear.
I've gone by that many times.
On a hill overlooking Lake Travis, about 8 miles south of 620 and 183. Meaning. So what is the meaning of your life? And there's these classical stories of this guy who leaves his wife and family to go searching for the meaning of his life. Right? He keeps meeting spiritual gurus and they say, well, I don't know the answer to that one, but why don't you go talk to my teacher? And he would travel deeper and deeper into the central parts of Asia until he finally found himself to the teacher of all the teachers, the wisest, most ancient old fellow. And he finally gets an audience with him up in the mountains of the Himalayas, and he says, what, O great teacher, what is the meaning of life? And the teacher says, my son, life is a fountain. And the guy says, life is a fountain. Do you mean to say that I have given up everything to search for the meaning of life? And everybody thinks you're the guy who knows. And you tell me life is the fountain. That's the dumbest answer I ever heard. And the great wizened teacher, the inheritor of thousands of incarnations of the greatest teachers, looked at him and said, you mean to say life isn't the fountain? It's not going to be an answer. It's not a concept. There's no answer for life. But there are moments where you feel life is meaningful. And so what it is an experience. And it's not just an experience of moments, but it's beginning to build up those moments. And if you think of it that way, one of the nice things about being in the senior generation is that we're able to say, we're going to die. What kind of state of consciousness do we want to be in a year or two before we go? And when we head over the edge? What would make life feel most alive, most meaningful? And when you stop and think of it that way, there are some tools to work with that we've come up with. One of these is to recognize that our culture has been infiltrated by science, which is wonderful, but it's not the same as taking over. Because science can tell you, to some extent, what is, but it can't tell you what should be. It has nothing to say about meaning or values. How shall I feel about it? Come on in, sit down. We're just warming up to getting to the good parts.
Okay.
The way to think about her that isn't scientific is to recognize that it's psychologically responsible to make up stories, to make a story of your life. You could say your life already is a story, but it isn't. It's sort of like what some umpire once said about baseball. It isn't a strike or a ball until I call it. It isn't a story until you tell it as a story. And what I want to encourage you to do as a kind of project is begin to sketch out parts of your autobiography. Well, I don't want to become a tiresome old person telling people my story. Well, you're not necessarily tiresome. Think of it as a piece of art. Work on it with your partners and your friends. Say, you know, I've thought about it. Begin to write up your memoirs. And here I'll be talking about some tools, because what we're saying is approach it not as if there is a true story there, because the essence of a biographer is that there is no true story. This is what mainstream postmodernism has come up with. You can't pin down a true story, and actually the true story is infinitely boring. And what I mean by that is here's a little story I tell. Once I had a fantasy of wanting, you know those wonderful moments in your memory, those fragments where you could really smell the paste in grammar school, or the crayons, or certain colors were particularly vivid, and there's this kind of, golly, I want to go back, and I wish I could have that part of my childhood again. I'd like to experience it. So I prayed to the angel in charge of that, and she said, well, as a matter of fact, we can do that for you. We keep your life on video, and it's multimodal, so all the sensations, all the smell-o-vision, the whole thing, the entire experience can be experienced again, just the way you want it. If you wanted to go back and have your life over again, you can do it. Wow, I thought that's a great deal. And then I started thinking, you know, I mean, what if they give us what we want? Hi, come on in. Thank you. And I started realizing that the big problem is that I just wanted the high points. It's not a matter of, I didn't want the suffering either. But most of it would have been incredibly boring. So I asked the angel if they'd give me an edited version. And she said, no, I don't edit for you. If you want to edit, you can go back, watch the whole thing, and take out what you want. And I realized making a story is a piece of art. It's a great deal of editing. Most of the stuff that I do in life is, another story I tell is the angel who's saying, are you a good boy or bad boy, and putting it in the big book. 99% of the time or more, it's, I don't know, he's just having lunch. It's not either a good way of having lunch or a bad way. Basically, it's boring. So it's an editing process. And what I'm saying is that it's okay to think like an artist, to think like you are a high-priced biographer. We're paying you $200,000 to write the biography of this person who is, in 100 years, will be recognized as one of the most famous and eminent pioneers of whatever it is that you're up to in history. And allow yourself to say, well, what would a high-paid biographer do with my life? The truth is that it is actually more dramatic. Before, there's another layer in there that said, oh man, it's just, I haven't done that much, and I'm not that much. Don't let those voices of doubt get in the way. They're always there. What I want to suggest as you think about looking at your life as a piece of biography as a piece of theater is that, in fact, it has some very interesting lessons. You've come through some major times and changes in your culture, in the roles you've played. Right now you're going through one in that the senior years have never been dealt with, where groups of people of our age get together and say, what do we want to do now? And what is this about? In some ways, we're all a bunch of pioneers. This needs to be part of our story, too. The process of making meaning is itself part of the meaning. But in addition to that, you have all kinds of stories. The way to feel life as meaningful is to think of your life as a tapestry. And what I mean by that is that we all have threads of stories. There are oftentimes a lot of holes, a lot of unfinished business. There's a lot of themes that we've never really woven together consciously. And when you tell the story and you begin to weave it, you start tightening up the whole fabric. And when you add, what are your poems that spoke to you during that time of your life? What song or music did you listen to during that time of your life? What kind of art or what movies or what symbols became exciting to you? It's as if you're adding those flecks of gold and red and blue and color to the tapestry. So there's a bit of courage in daring to do this, because you want not to give in to that part of your mind that said, well, I don't know, it's supposed to be useful, and for the most part it is, to be humble. But there are times in life where humility is irrelevant. And there are certain situations you don't want to be completely humble. You want to have some times when you go, ta-da! Here I am. You want to have a bit of spice. You don't want the spice throughout the soup, but you want some occasionally in your meal. And that's part of what the drama is. And my background as a psychiatrist is also one who's been involved in drama. And I became aware, and I was just talking with Dr. Zielinski, who's in my field, that when I would go to the psychiatry conferences, I would feel kind of weird. And I couldn't figure out why for a while, because they're all good, appropriate people. You know, they say, oh, psychiatrists, you have to be nuts to be a psychiatrist. Wrong. They're not nuts. They're not half nuts enough. That healthy people have a bit of role diversity. You know how they talk about diversify your investments? Diversify your roles. Most of the time we need to be, for social lubrication, relatively low key. But because their career is, it's not just the psychoanalyst, their career, although that was part of it, is our job is not to intrude upon your story. I want to be as neutral as possible. And there's a place for that. There's a place for being low key and not intruding yourself. And it's probably 70% of life. We don't want to go around wearing funny hats in most roles. But to never wear a funny hat. Ah, pitiful. And I'm concerned about my colleagues that it's been years since they've worn a funny hat. And maybe they did it for Halloween, but did they ever do it around the house? And did they do it with their kids or grandchildren? Now, how to wear a funny hat. So what we're talking about is having that spice and having the poignancy. It's another part of the tapestry of your life called the sub-stories. I've discovered that healthy, normal people have come through more courageous journeys than they've often ever told anyone. I don't know if it's true for each of you, but it's probable that there was a time in your life when you got into trouble. And if you look back on it, you could have compounded the trouble and make it worse. Matter of fact, probably did a little bit, at least for a while. But because you're here now, you probably didn't compound it and make it worse and worse and worse until you went over the edge into either murder or suicide. You probably somehow, with the help of a friend, with a book that you read, with a descent of grace, who knows what, caught yourself and turned it around. Most people have had episodes like this. They may not be the world's most dramatic, but they are dramatic. And you owe it to yourself to say, no, I forgot that that happened. And to be able to tell somebody and to give yourself credit, that might have been one of the defining moments of your life. You know, you could have been much worse off if you'd given in. This is going to relate, by the way, so I'll just tell you ahead of time so you don't have to come, but you might want to. Next month, I'm going to talk about the principle of the hero and how, in a sense, each of us can be heroes. Well, not to say can be heroes, can participate in the process of the heroic versus its opposite. And we'll talk about what that is. But it relates to this. It relates to catching yourself or having somebody else kick you in the pants and turning it around. It's a good story. There were times where you were so humiliated you didn't know if you could go on. But you did. You went back to school, or you confronted the bully, or you dealt with your older sister and you didn't let the competition drive you nuts. You found your place again and you went on. One of the fun parts of the stories is, and now I'm touching on another aspect called the themes of the stories, like somebody who helped you. One of the beautiful values of this, my wife was just reading to me an essay, or a piece from an essay by Thoreau, where he said one of the sweetest things you can do in life is talk about how you were in love. And not necessarily just tummy flutter, heart bang, boy-girl falling in love. Although that's a good story and part of your story too. The story of my loves. Remember Frank Sinatra's, when I was 21, it wasn't, that's a good thing. The people we've been in love with in our life, that's part of the story. That's one of the definite threads in our life. And telling the stories of who our first and second wives were, or husbands, that can be something. But also, have you ever been in love with God? Or Jesus? Or a saint? Or a bird? Or a poem? Or a poet? Whatever you've been in love with, it's very sweet to witness to that. One of the fun things I'm doing as I'm talking at the senior university in this is about some philosophical traditions that I feel offer a great deal of excitement and new ideas, and in that sense they're very sweet. I don't know if I'd say I'm in love with them, but I like them a lot. And it's fun to be able to witness to something. It's like saying, there's this great piece of music I'd love to share with you. And so part of your story is finding the music that you find especially touching and making sure you find some people you can share it with, writing about it, the kind of music that excited you most. Or then I went through this phase where I really loved this kind of music. I still do, you know, and I like, because a lot of people don't remember how joyful that was. We were talking about singing. And one of the reasons I came here is because I found fewer and fewer people in the general populace knew songs back in the era when you could remember the words to songs. They were singable. And I started saying, hey, my generation knew songs, sang songs. And a lot of the younger people don't have a lot of songs they can sing the whole way through. They have snatches of a few little verses from this rap song, but not that many sing songs, much less singing together. So one part of my story is the folk song tradition. Sometimes we have song fests here, and we'll have a Christmas song fest here, and just sing songs together. So what kind of themes? Some of the themes to tempt you with, and I think I put this on my website, and I'll give you my card if you want so you can look at these things. But think about the homes you've been in and what made this house special that house special. Just talking about not just the home, but the region. So, when you were younger, you grew up where?
Wisconsin.
And one of the things about Wisconsin weather, or the seasons or something that are still special in your memory was?
I thought of the unspecial at first, the cold and the snow.
The cold and the snow. And
Right, but we had the rolling hills, green.
did you ever have some experiences in the snow that you almost pity people who've never had that?
Yeah, playing and making snow angels.
Mm-hmm. So being able, and I grew up in Los Angeles, and we never had snow. One time we had about 1/10 of an inch. So that's, miraculous. I would see it in the cars. Being able to talk about what was it like where you grew up? What were the weather like? We also didn't have thunderstorms. So when I started going into the middle of America and encountering thunderstorms, that was awesome, dude. And I wanted to tell people, you don't know. I mean, you see a lightning flash in the comic books, but so talking about your home and what makes things home for you. You can use the word also home. Have you ever found a group or a church or a context where you say, man, I feel like I've come home? Make sure that gets talked about as one of the threads. Some little minor themes. One of the things that broke through here is that I always felt that I had to follow Aristotle and have a beginning, a middle, and the end of the story. I had to have a plot. And I'm not great at that. What broke through for me is realizing that a story can be incredibly simple. The time I was really, really disappointed with my birthday. Nobody came, or this happened, or I didn't get what I wanted. And what I did about it and how I was comforted or how I comforted myself. That's a story. It's not a terribly complex plot, but it's one of the threads. When I do this as a workshop, I have people make drawings, and that's a fun thing to help diagram things out. One of the drawings, have they taught you about the social network diagram, the social atom?
The social atom,
Yeah, well, it's a terrific technique. You make a circle, actually make a sort of like 3 circles in a row. And the inner circle are the people who you kind of feel close to, and the middle circle are the people you kind of feel, they're still kind of important, but they're middle, they're not close. And then the outer circle are, well, they're still influential. And there's several kinds of circles you can make. You can make the circle of who you were as a kid. Put yourself there, and then there was this person and that person. And you can have your animals in there. And you can even put people who passed on in there. If you grew up in a home where Grandpa died when you were 7, but boy, everybody kept talking about it for 8 years, his spirit's in there. Put it in your diagram. You could make a diagram of your life now. You could make a similar circle of what would you like your diagram to be in 5 years. You could also make another diagram like that, only instead of the people in your life, you could put the different parts of yourself, the different roles you play. Sometimes your marital partner, it can be one of the roles. It can be your work roles and how alive are they, your various hobby and interests, spiritual, any roles you can think of. But just plotting those around, you begin to see how diversified you are in your life. A third diagram that's kind of fun to make is a bit related to the second one. It's not so much the roles you play, it's what are you kind of affiliated with or believe in or want to see promoted as your favorite movies or types of movies. It's your favorite kinds of music. It's your favorite religious movements or political movements. People who you believe in. These would be called the cultural network. And again, you see how you're embedded in many, many different identities that even if it's only peripheral, well, I've paid a bit of dues to these people on and off over the years, to this organization, and I still feel part of it. I care what happens to. Perhaps it was the occupation, trade, or industry that you were part of at some point in your life. And you begin to see elements. It's like seeing a cross-section of this texture that's slowly weaving together. There's a number of exercises if you want to take this seriously. Write your obituary. What do you really want to say? What do you want to have people say about you? And what's weird is that, of course, we don't always say what we want to have said. One of my favorite reminders is that part, if you remember the movie Oklahoma, and Gordon McRae is singing to Brad Steiger, and Brad Steiger is the bum. He's Jed Fry. Do they remember that movie? He was kind of the bad guy. And they were in his sort of dugout where he stays. Gordon McRae, who's the clean good guy, is singing, trying to make friends with him a little bit, loosen him up. Poor Jed Fry. People just don't appreciate him. That's right, nobody appreciates me. And he sings this song, Jed Fry is dead. Poor old Jed is dead. You know, and they have it. And Judd is a little bit too dense to pick up that he's giving him all these little sarcastic digs. But there's one line that was very poignant. He loved the birds of the sky, and he loved all the animals, and he loved everybody. But they never recognized it because he never let on. What good is loving everybody if you never let on? If you don't tell people what you want? The other image that comes to me is if you remember the song and the movie Picnic with Kim Novak. And the problem in that play, in that movie, is that she was afflicted with the problem of being a very pretty girl. And her boyfriend, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, you're so beautiful, which is kind of what guys in my generation were taught to say to girls. What else can you say to girls? There wasn't much modeling for how do you talk to women. They were sort of a foreign species. So you say, gee, you're pretty, and that's supposed to make points. Well, she had it up to here with being told she was pretty. And so when the other guy comes along, I forgot who he was, but he was a bit of a drifter, and she felt he needed her. And that got through to her falling in love, and she ended up going off with him because he needs me. It's not just that I'm pretty, I can be useful. This is that issue of what roles, relates to sociometry. What roles do you want people to like you for? Not why do they like you, but what do you want them to know about you? Well, maybe you've got to tell them. Maybe you've got to witness to what are the things that you want people to appreciate. And it may surprise them. It may not be your conventional roles or what they expect. That can be part of what you can feel that's meaningful about your life, is to really get it clear in your mind. One of the reasons I'm going to talk a little psychology about this issue of meaning. Freud said that what we don't be aware of, a lot of it is because we really don't want to look at it. It's threatening to us. It makes us anxious, frequently because it's sexual. And he's partly right. But what I found that people stop thinking about is a whole layer that he talked about a little bit, but he didn't appreciate how pervasive it is. We'll call them the doubters. It's a layer of mental maneuvers that you can almost hear their voices. It's one layer down, and it's when you haven't said it out loud. Well, maybe you don't really feel this. Maybe it's not important. Oh, no, it doesn't count. You don't really know what you're thinking. How do you know that's right? You don't know. Maybe it's not right. Maybe you don't even feel that way. You don't feel that strongly about that. Don't take a stand. Don't say it because you're not sure if you're right. It's those little The technical terms is derealization, meaning this isn't happening. You ever had that little feeling of something's, I can't believe this is happening. It's there all the time. This isn't happening. Depersonalization, it's not happening to me. Dissociation, well, it's happening, but I'm over here. You know, it doesn't bother me. And there's a variety of these kinds of little themes. The reason it's important to recognize that is that explains why it's important to not just think that when you think it, it works, because your unconscious dilutes that. It's like soup. That's why it's good to say it. Either write it, put it into a poem, make it into a song, tell somebody about it, show somebody about it. Dare to put it down in a diagram. I mentioned one diagram, which is the circles. Another one is draw a map of your life as if it's a journey. And that can be it's a powerful art therapy technique. And what I found is with some of these art therapy techniques, they're too good for just patients. All kinds of people need to be doing this. This is helps you feel more alive. This is terrific stuff because you start saying, what a journey. Here I was, and here I was, and then I kind of dipped into this for a while. And you find out you have quite a bit of a story. You can't really tell the whole story to a group of 20 people. It does get boring for me to hear you tell it for 20 people. But one-to-one in small groups is not boring, especially with the help of where everybody's helping each other, ask questions and drawing you out. Then it's good literature. The truth is, you have some good stories. One of the themes that I find one of the sweetest things and the most fun things is, what is your spiritual journey? How has it been for you? Where is it now? Where is it going? Where does it come from? And they're remarkably different. You'd think, well, aren't most people, they just, No. Underneath, there's quite a story. Well, this turned me on for a while, and then I kind of got bland for a few years. Then I caught in fire again in this way and that way. And finding some people who are weaving that into your memoirs of your spiritual journey is really good trauma. And it also is probably full of some people I'd like to hear about. This teacher, that minister, this book that popped into your hand. You ever had that happen where you're at a bookstore and, I don't know what I'm doing with this book, but it fascinates me, and it turns out it was just the right thing for what you needed at that point in your life? I love it when that happens. That's another theme that you can play with. Jung had a name for these coincidences, but Lerner and Lowe phrased it well when he says, and they meet not really by chance. Remember where Hello Young Lovers, they have that little one, and they meet not really by chance. What are these things called? Coincidences. And sometimes when my wife and I think about our lives, we say, if we'd been only a little bit more this or a little bit less this, we might not have met, or if we met, we might not have clicked. And it's amazing sometimes the adjustments that have to be made. So that can be part of your story, and it can make it fun. Is what have been the coincidences in your life? I think I mentioned it, but I want to say again, mentioning the people who've helped you. And there may be some of them around still alive. And even if you tell them, because people don't know that they've had an impact on you. And you don't know who you've had an impact on. What would happen if that person, your niece, said, Aunt, whatever, when you were with me that summer, that really changed things for me. That's when I started really learning how. You can do this. It's a powerful gift you can give people by letting them know how they have affected you. And many people have never done that. It's never occurred to them. Well, they're so powerful and they're together. They don't need to know that, and I'm so puny. There is that tendency in our culture of minimizing who we think we've been to other people. But it turns out that when I do grief work, these are the two key questions that end up being most powerful, is imagining yourself talking to the person who has died or was going to die and letting them know in very specific ways, what have you meant to me? What is different in my life because I've known you? And then, and this is where most people aren't really, because we're so frightened of being conceited. There's that fascinating phenomenon between 9 and 14 where you hear this word, rarely afterwards and not before, but it burns into our brains. Don't be conceited, remember? And it's really a projection of the envy process of that age group, 9 to 14. How dare you presume that you've meant anything to me? Well, if you stop and you think about it in terms of more mature ways, sure, your kids mean a lot to you. Sometimes your nephews and nieces. Sometimes unexpected people have meant things to you. And they may not have known that. But if you think about it, you say, I did mean a lot. Sure, my dad had several kids, but I was the one who, and can you imagine these other people saying to you, this is how you were special for me? That gets people crying. Because it's a truth that we kind of know, but we're afraid to admit. There's that layer, remember I was talking about, I'm afraid to admit it, so I kind of dilute it, well, maybe not, maybe. And you don't know if you're right. But to dare to say it out loud, I might have been incredibly important to my grandmother. Because I remember I did this and this and this with her. And there weren't any other people who did that. Or your granddaughter. Don't assume that other people have been doing all these things. Because one of the things we look around and we say, well, I know I wasn't that terrific, but then again, nobody else was doing it. You ever notice that? So, comparatively, you were terrific. You can play with different kinds of questions. The best and the basic question, there was a series of books by a guy named Carlos Castaneda that were popular in the 70s. And one of the most important lines is to live as though death were on your left shoulder. The idea of it's not necessarily morbid, it's more keeping your priorities vividly alive. Are you doing what you want to do because you might not have a chance tomorrow? Are you really talking about, are we really living the way we want to live? Are we, and you don't have to be that grandiose about it, it's just keeping the priorities straight. If you knew you'd be dying in a few months or a few years, what would you do? Now's a good time to start thinking about that. Ditto for if you had a special loved one who might be dying in a few months or years. What would you want to make sure you did? Then you can go in another direction. You can say, okay, let's assume I have all the money I want. What do I want to do with it? I've just won the lottery. I have $50 million. What do I want to do with it? And it's a variety of that. I mean, thinking about what you want, and what's that line, you better be careful about what you ask for, you might get it. Daring to think it through as part of your story of future dreaming. It is an intriguing concept, one of those themes that is very pervasive in our culture that hardly ever gets talked about. And Tom, you can help me with this, is, okay, you get to heaven, what's it like? And is that really what you want? I mean, what if you got there and St. Peter said, it's sort of a piece of theater. You can have anything you want. That's a hard question. What do I really want to ask for? And several things pop into your head. And then he says, okay, how long do you want it for? And do you want anything else meanwhile? I mean, thinking it through, what if I could? That's a hard question. You see, people unconsciously, what they're really hoping for, maybe it happened once or 3 times in your life, where you had a birthday party and you got a present and it was so perfect that it's just what you want and you didn't even know what you wanted. You know that feeling? But it almost never happens. It may never have happened to you. But there's that sense of it could happen. And when I get there, St. Peter's going to say, I know exactly what's going to be terrific for you, and he's going to be right. It's going to blow your mind. Right? There's no responsibility for you to have to actually